squatting. When I could do free weight squats, that was a different performance animal than, doing the leg press. So I'm like, I'm not going to make this mistake again. I think Louis had the pulley system. There wasn't any other belt squats out there. I've been on the market like 10 or 11 years, probably almost the same time as like a pit shark, but I just haven't had the marketing. So I'm like, I'm going to create this belt squat. I know what it has to be. It has to be a natural movement. I have to be able to get in my natural groove. So I came up, again, I'm not a fabricator. Here I go again, biting off more than I can chew. But I was able to get local fabricators to create this design that I knew would, in my opinion, would give me the benefits of a free weight squat, but also be perfect on my low back and knee joints because there would be no artificial shear. It would be, a vertical line of drive. So I created this device, and first thing I did, obviously, I'm fortunate that I patented it. I put a patent in, but I wanted to make sure it worked just like a barbell squat because I'm a big guy on if you're going to use a multi-joint movement, that's why you squat, right? You want to use a compound movement. So in the first year of creating this thing, I sent letters to a lot of colleges that did research, that did exercise science research. And I said, please, are you willing to do an independent study? I want to make sure that this behaves like a barbell back squat. It worked the glutes, it worked the quad, it worked all that musculature. I also sent a machine to Stu McGill, the famous biomechanics guy up in Canada. And again, I don't have a huge, I have some money because I did well enough in my day job, but I can't just be throwing money around. So I sent one up to Stu McGill because biomechanics, having injured my spinal cord, I wanted to get his confirmation. If you're going to use a belt squat biomechanically, this is the only one that makes sense. So long story short, within that first 2 or 3 years of opening up a gym, I had a patented bell squat, and Widener University School of Physical Therapy was kind enough to actually do a real pristine research study comparing it to a back squat. And between you and I, if the study, it was just an EMG study, but it was critical for me. If that didn't behave, like if it didn't work the glute max and the glute med like a back squat, you and I wouldn't be here discussing Squatmax. I would have scrapped it because I want my daughter to maximize her athleticism. I want her to be able to do a maximum squat where she's going to improve as an athlete, and maybe it'll help prevent ACL tears. Like training, just like we have talked, is personal with me. So Squatmax wasn't developed. Let me come up with this device that I'm going to peddle to try to get rich off of. It was, how can I maximize what I'm chasing for my athletes? I'm kind of living vicariously now through my own athletes, that I want them to be able to, if their dreams to play Division I field hockey, that I'm going to give them everything we have. So that's the story behind Squatmax. Where Squatmax has failed, Squatmax has been on the market 10, 11 years. I had no frigging clue about marketing. If I could do it all over again, it would probably be in a different place. I mean, let me tell you right now, it's being, Eddie Cohn, Vanilla Gorilla, Brian Carroll, Donnie Thompson, Optimus Prime, the best that ever power lifted have endorsed Squatmax as their belt squat of choice. So that should say enough. But I'm not rogue. I'm not, Sorinex. I don't have marketing people. Amazingly, I'm selling. I probably sold 500 Squatmax units last year. This is a one-man operation who's packing, who's making these in Pennsylvania, shipping them himself, have a gym as my day job. But the cool thing, the most recent study, and then I'll stop beating it, is I had Widener come back 2 years ago, and I said, look, people are giving free passes to the lever arm belt squat, to the cable. Let's have the three go head to head. Squatmax. There's been other studies now. Matt Wenning and the Pit Shark both tried to duplicate the Squatmax study, and they failed miserably. It was shown that the lever arm doesn't work the glute max or glute med. So there's not enough activity. So it's more of a leg press than it is a squat. But anyway, this study 2 years ago showed the Squatmax activity-wise, VMO, glute med. If you're looking for the superior belt squat, there's no doubt which one it is. It's Squatmax, just because. And people will say, oh, EMG doesn't matter. Well, they're missing the point. the EMG against the barbell squat, that's the most important one. It worked just like the barbell squat. So you can say it doesn't matter to have more activity in the VMO or the glute med. Well, if you have no activity, very low activity, you can't have a change. You can't have a physiological adaptation. You have to have a certain amount of, I'm all toxicologist, you got to have enough blood level for the drug to work. So that's where Squatmax is. And we can talk about, I saw on your resume that you did some marketing. I needed some of your background 6-7 years ago. I thought the science, people would come find it. That's not how it works. You could have the best exercise device in the world. It doesn't matter if no one knows about it.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor? And this might help too. But can you explain to me why the Squatmax MD is better than all of the alternatives? Like I'm a 5th grader.
Well, I guess if we start with the premise of what is a belt squat designed to do? A belt squat is designed to replace a squat, a barbell back squat, or any free weight squat. That's why a belt squat was created, right?
Okay.
But obviously the rate limiting factor, a squat's a dynamic movement, but the rate limiting factor for a lot of athletes, like let's use my daughter as an example. In 9th, 10th grade, yeah, we can push the squats the traditional barbell back squat as heavy as we can, but at a certain point, her spine, she's a soccer player. I may not even want to add additional weight, additional hypertrophy. I want the benefit of the legs, getting the leg as strong as possible. So that's where the beauty of Squatmax is. It's giving me the benefits of a free weight squat movement. You know, it's working the stabilizers, it's working that multi-joint movement, coordinating the glute, the quad, the body's working in unison, just like you have to do in sports. Like if you're picking up a linebacker, your hips and quads, everything has to work in unison. So the other point of a belt squat was everyone created belt squats because it's better on the spine. But in actuality, now that I've been at this 10 years, and I don't want to bad mouth other companies, but there's hundreds of reports of people hurting their back every year on lever arm belt squats. One of the first ones 5 or 6 years ago, JJ Watts blew his back out, re-injured his back doing heavy lever arm belt squats. So everyone thought belt squats are foolproof. They can't hurt your back. But I know as a person with back injuries that anytime you have shear, like compression didn't hurt me as much as shear. That's why I never deadlift. If that load isn't perfectly vertical from top to bottom, that belt sits on your low back and your hips. So even if there's a little bit of pull forward and you're strong enough to use heavy weight, you're now going to have shear and that flexion of the spine. So that's why, Squatmax, because Stu McGill, who I've never paid a dime to, he's the world-renowned Squat University Aaron. These are all guys that are talking about the biomechanics of Squatmax. It pulls straight down on the hips versus having that shear moment, and that shear moment, some guys that are 5'6", 5'7", they may get away with a lever arm belt squat, but people with, we're all different anatomies. And that's what's great about Squatmax, because it's not fixed. And that's what my patent is based on. That lets you get into your natural groove, whether you're more hingy or you're more of a squatty squat. That's going to always maintain a vertical load because it's not anchored to a fixed point. And what the research has shown, like, it's one thing for me to say, oh, this is better. But again, that research wasn't done from a marketing perspective initially. It was to know that my daughter's going to get glute medius so that, we have less chance of an ACL tear, that we're not, you trade off a machine, just like I had to, when I was always hurting my back, I'd have to get away from back squats. And I gave up a lot. When I had to just do leg presses, I was giving up that multi-joint coordination. When I was healthy enough that I could back squat, I told you my vertical got up to 36, 37 inches. It was 32 inches. It was 31 some years when I was leg pressing. And I have a lot of data from my gym at this point. We've had so much success stories where athletes have improved speed, vertical jumps. So it's just I guess I build volumes of information, right? I could have just said, hey, Ed Cohn loves it, but I wanted to get the science perspective. I wanted to get the expert biomechanics perspective. And then I loved it. Some of the top power lifters see what I see. If you were to create a perfect device, Squatmax is it. So I'm not sure if I gave you a 5th grade version of it, but that's the best I could do on the fly.
No, I think you did. So basically, just so we're crystal clear, what you're saying is, and what the studies are saying, is that so first of all, the belt squat is supposed to replicate a back squat without adding as much tension as possible to your spine. And it's supposed to feel similar.
And knees.
And knees.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say joint preservation.
Okay. And the Squatmax MD, because of its placement, the weight placement, and your ability to not lean forward, it's better than what else is on the market.
Yeah, one of my quotes I probably overuse is Squatmax allows the weight conforms to you, whereas if you're using a machine that's fixed, at some point you have to conform to the machine. So if you remember my story about the Smith machine, I was all excited because it was going to be I thought it'd be safer on my back. I was just a college kid, a biology major. I didn't have any thought. No, that Smith machine forced me in a fixed pattern. So that load, depending how I wanted to squat, I wasn't probably keeping that load directly in the middle of my feet unless I conformed to the machine based on my squatting form. But yeah, that's always been the case for me. Like we did a lot of hammer strength in the NFL, even from a machine that doesn't work your stabilizers. That's what the research, I knew it would be the case because Squatmax, you have to control the load left to right. That's so important from a performance perspective. If your stabilizers aren't part of the equation, you're not maximizing performance. It's funny. I'm getting a text here from old Major League Baseball athlete Raul Banez. It's weird that he's texting me right now. He hit 29 home runs at age 41 with the Seattle Mariners, and he credited Squatmax. He called Squatmax the fountain of youth because it allowed him to do maximum effort free weight squats. So he got the performance benefit of the squat, but he felt that it decompressed his spine because remember, that's the other thing. Because it's not fixed, you're not only preserving the joint, that load is pulling straight down on your hips. So he felt he got decompression of his spine, and he also felt that it was great for his mobility of his hip flexors because it's a free weight squat pulling straight down. So yeah, it's pretty ironic. So he called it the fountain of youth. So that's how I say it. If I'm going to use a device, that's why I created this. I want to make sure I'm maximizing performance. Is that what every garage gym owner wants to do? Probably not. But if you can maintain your leg strength, now that I'm pushing 50, I'm pushing 55, I can jump up and grab a rim. I made a post just half of a joke last week. I was kind of ragging on the Liver King a little bit. I had a little liver drawing, his little body, little liver character with real little legs. And I said, the real fountain of youth, if you're a middle-aged man, is being able to maintain leg strength and size because all the hormonal response. And as a clinical scientist, I know the Squatmax is behaving much closer to a barbell squat. I know from a biomechanical perspective, it's the best way I can go to preserve someone's spine and knees because why would you want to add shear? You may as well just do a leg press. Why are bell squats so hot and heavy in the last 3 or 4 years? Because people think, man, I can do max effort squats because it's a multi-joint. But the truth of the story is they're doing a quad pump and getting shear on their back. And that's okay. But, this isn't a regulated industry. So I see every day, I just saw some Breathe belt that said it activates your glute better. Where's the research? So again, in God I trust, everybody else bring data is kind of where my approach is. But I'm here in my story, I'm not your typical gym manufacturer. I'm a guy that's creating devices that I think can actually improve athletic strength. I guess that's a good way to end that